pledge
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
That sounds real nice, by the way, with a room full of people, so I appreciate it. All right, call the roll, please.
Trustee Spurling. Here. Trustee Lee. Trustee Heinz. Trustee Youngerman.
Here.
Trustee Marisak.
Here.
And Trustee Bond.
Here.
We're all here this evening. Under public participation, the first item, we have public comment. This is the portion of the meeting where any member of the public can address the board on any topic. That's a 2-minute opportunity if you're not on the agenda elsewhere. All right. Go ahead. You want to come down to the... That's all right. I should have specified.
We give you a microphone.
Hello, everyone. Is that on? Push. Okay. My name's Rob Baldiga. I'm on Mayfield Drive. I am here just to try to show some sort of participation about the speeding issues on Mayfield Drive. I've worked very diligently with the Chief of Police and with Doug as well. Thank you, by the way, for the time this morning, Doug. Appreciate that. Just want to bring this to everyone's attention that it's something that I'm pushing for, and I'm willing to work with anybody, and for their help or whatever, to try to nip this issue where people have no regard for the speed and puts lots of our kids' lives in danger.
Can I ask, are you the citizen that reached out to me? Did you send me an email or a Facebook message?
I did not send any messages through Facebook. I've been in email communication with Chief Myers and with Doug as well.
Okay.
And then as of today, also with Chief Deputy Sanders.
There's another resident who reached out to me then. I'm going to meet with him as well.
That probably
okay.
would have been Nate Zimmerman if I had to ask, but if I had to guess, but I'm not sure.
I can't remember right offhand.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I didn't know, Armando, if you wanted to comment, or Chief, on just...
Yeah, actually, we'll turn it over to Trustee Marisak.
Yeah.
So this morning, we had a nice meeting with Rob and several other residents along Mayfield Drive discussing the issue. We've determined that it's not a rehash of the previous issues we've had. This is a new issue, a new area, newer homes. Residents have only been there for about 3 years. So this is an area we haven't encountered the speeding issues previously in this zone. So we had a great productive meeting with the folks that were there today. Had a great exchange of some ideas, some actionable items that we're working on. Armando already was out and put up the speed kill signs along in the parkway. So that's phase one. They're going to work on some items on their side of things and gather some additional information, some residential radar as well. So we had a great opening meeting and some dialogue to try to work through this problem.
Chief, when was the last time we had that trailer up that shows the speed?
It is, it's probably 6 to 7 weeks ago. We've been moving it around town with requests, but I'll get it back out there.
I think I made the suggestion too, and I'm sure our financial guy can find the extra $2,000 for that sign that's like the trailer, that you can stay there permanently, and it picks up your car speeds going toward Oswego on right there along the river. They have one there, and it picks up every car that comes, and people look at it. And I think that'd be a good thing if you can come up with money in the budget for the $2,000 for the sign, that would be a permanent speed thing for Mayfield.
Absolutely. I'll work with the finance director and find that money.
I'm sure those words have been spoken a lot before. But one thing I did want to say to the residents that are here on that, they came to the coffee that we had a couple of weeks ago, and I know they've been working with our police department before, and we do get this concern every so often from this road, and other roads too. And so I just want you guys to know that we have full attention of this. We're looking into this. There's a couple things that I said that we would look at with regards to the speed limit and whether we have the ability to lower that, which I know that our staff has looked at and can report back to you guys on that. But this is something we're working towards a solution on, and so we'll report back. I think, Doug, if you want to report back at the next several meetings, just to see kind of where we are in the process. We're taking it seriously because, like many of you, we enjoy the front of our house as well as the backyards of our house too. And I have young kids, and we want to do everything we can do to make sure that our community is safe going forward. So with that, we'll move on. I appreciate you coming this evening. Any other public comment? All right, with that, we'll move on to item B, which is the swearing in of Village Clerk Penny Fitzpatrick. So Penny was unable to join us at the last meeting, so we'll certainly welcome her this evening to the front, and I'll do the honors, and we'll go from there. Don't look as official as the judge, but. All right, can you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Penny Fitzpatrick, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that I will, and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of village clerk to the best of my ability. Congratulations. So, do you want to invite your family down for a photo? Only happens once every 4 years, so. Penny was duly elected, along with the rest of us, unopposed, but still, so she got 100% of the vote. You guys? You just got backed out of the photo. No, it's perfect. It's all right. Thank you. For coming. So go all the way around and.
Sorry, that was sweet.
Thank you. All right, move on to item C, which is another swearing in of Officer Matthew Demetral. Awesome. With that, I'll ask our Deputy Chief Armando Sanders to give us the introductions.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Mr. President, board members, staff. This evening, I'd like to introduce you to our newest officer, our newest hire, Officer Matthew Demetral, prefers Matt. Matt graduated from the Suburban Law Enforcement Academy in March of this year. He successfully passed his Illinois State certification, so he is officially an officer within Illinois and for our department. He is previously a graduate of Joliet West High School and Western Illinois, where he obtained his degree in law enforcement and justice administration. In attendance this evening is his mom, Denise Demetral. She wanted to give a speech, but I said we were going to run short on time, so we won't do that. Girlfriend, Casey Day. Grandparents, Herb and Edith Gilson. Okay. Also, we have several of our officers in attendance, so thank you for coming out. So Matt currently lives in Joliet. He enjoys fishing and outdoor activities. At this time, we'll have Village President Matt Broley swear him in.
I'm offering a 2-to-1. I could do village clerk right now if you want. All right. Would you raise your right hand and repeat after me? I, Matt Demetral, do solemnly swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and the Constitution of the State of Illinois, and that I will faithfully discharge the duties of police officer to the best of my ability.
At this time, his girlfriend, Casey Day, will be pinning him. If you want to come up for pictures at this time.
That was quick, by the way.
Jeez,
Good work.
yeah.
You guys practice that?
There's only a little blood.
You guys want it? Yeah. Yep. All right.
They were like automatic.
Yeah, right? Thank you.
Matt.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. If we could again welcome our newest officer, Matthew Demetral. Thank you.
All right. All right, move on to item D. We have recognition of Kyle Hammond on achieving his Eagle Scout Award. Yeah, with that, I would like to invite you down if you're willing and able at the microphone to introduce yourself and a little bit maybe about your project.
Hi, my name's Kyle Hammond, and for my project, I built fishing line recyclers around my neighborhood ponds, so people could throw their used line away instead of throwing it on the ground, pretty much.
Awesome. Great work. Well, I do have this certificate to present to you, and then we can get a photo if you like. You're in good company. We do have one of our senior staff members is also an Eagle Scout. I call that out every time we have an Eagle Scout in here, but certainly a huge accomplishment. And
Kyle, you
What
have a
reference?
family down there? You don't.
all right, so this is a certificate of achievement from the Village of Montgomery presented to Kyle Hammond in recognition for achieving the Eagle Scout Award, dated May 22nd, 2006. And you have the official ceremony tomorrow?
Mike, do you want me to?
All right. Moving on, and you know, this is the fifth item on the agenda that's kind of more of a celebration, and we honestly don't get enough of these at our board meetings, so I really do appreciate everybody that came this evening, was recognized. It's good to celebrate good achievements, especially within the Village of Montgomery, so I appreciate it. I'll move on to item E, which is a proclamation to become a Purple Heart community, and then I would invite Rick Gardner afterwards, if he's here, to come down the podium, maybe give us a little introduction to this. But I'll read the proclamation, entertain a motion for approval. Whereas citizens and officials of the Village of Montgomery have great admiration and utmost gratitude for the men and women who have selflessly served their community and this community in the armed forces. And whereas veterans have paid the high price of freedom by leaving their families and communities and placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. And whereas the contributions and sacrifices of the men and women from the Village of Montgomery who have served in the armed forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and way of life enjoyed by our citizens. And whereas many men and women in uniform have given their lives while serving in the armed forces. And whereas citizens in our community have earned the Purple Heart Medal as a result of being wounded while engaged in combat with an enemy force, construed as a singularly meritorious act of essential service. And whereas the Village of Montgomery seeks to remember and recognize the veterans who are recipients of the Purple Heart Medal. And whereas the Village Board of Montgomery, Illinois, desires to proclaim Montgomery, Illinois to be a Purple Heart community, honoring the service and sacrifice of our nation's men and women in uniform, wounded or killed by the enemy while serving to protect our freedoms. Now, therefore, I, Matt Brawley, Village President of the Village of Montgomery, do hereby proclaim Montgomery, Illinois to be a Purple Heart community.
I move to approve.
Second?
That's all right.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Heinz? Trustee Youngerman?
Yes.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
And Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Awesome. Thank you. With that, yeah.
My name is Rick Gardner. I am a member of the military or the Purple Heart. And just for you, those of you that don't know, and I'd like to thank the veterans that showed up in appreciation for what the community is doing for the veterans. The Military Order of the Purple Heart, or the Purple Heart Medal, was started in 1782 by George Washington, and at that time it was called the Medal of Merit, and it was a purple piece of cloth shaped as a heart. And there were 3 of those given out, and they have recovered, I guess, 1 or 2 of them. And then the Purple Heart was just kind of put on the shelf until about 1932, when General MacArthur reissued the Purple Heart again. And as you said in your proclamation, the Purple Heart is awarded for combat wounds or other instances that happen throughout service time to people in the community, state, and all around the country. And it's an honor to honor them. I appreciate you guys doing it. And there's a plaque, I don't know.
Yes.
Yep, we have the plaque that we'll display here within Village Hall.
Yep.
And then we also have some that we will put out in the community in different locations.
Getting these signed.
Yeah, let's, you want to get a photo? Let's hold that one up, too. If it's all right with you, I would like to invite the veterans, any veteran that's here this evening to come down. Mr. Gardner, if that works.
Here, Joe, we'll give it to one of the other guys.
Military Order of the Purple Heart Special Recognition Award is bestowed with pride to the Village of Montgomery, Illinois, for your dedication and support honoring America's combat wounded veterans becoming a Purple Heart community, presented by the patriot members of the Department of Illinois Military Order of the Purple Heart.
Can I get somebody else to hold this one?
Billy, grab that.
Give it to Herschel, yeah.
Somebody
Hey, Tim. Good to see you. Gosh.
Can we have them come around the circle? Yep, let's come around the circle. No, just come on right through.
Wednesday night at Beaverly. Okay. 5 to 7.
Yeah, he's my parents' name. Thank you so much, Gil.
Good to see you, Thomas.
Thank you for your service. How are you?
Good to see you.
All right.
Thomas, or Billy, good to see
Hi,
you.
thank you for your service.
The service?
Service.
Thanks for your service.
Appreciate your service.
Have you heard back from the county yet?
Thank you, sir. Only talking to Jake Zimmerman.
That's good enough.
Oh, how did we miss you? Thank you for your service.
Thank you, Herschel.
Thank you, gentlemen, for coming, especially my two old friends, the Johannesson boys, who live down here on 400 block of South Main, whose mother, I think, is 100, 101, what is she, 102? She's still...
I didn't go in that way, so. Nice. That's awesome. And one other thing that I would mention, I think most of the board is aware, but we have Clarence Bark from our Plan Commission, a 30-year member and also a World War II veteran, passed away this week at 93. So I think many of us had the pleasure of serving with him or around him for the last few decades. So we did put up the bunting at Village Hall and lowered the village flag out front in memory of him. So keep him in your thoughts and his family. All right, we'll move on to the last item under public participation. We have Fire Chief Tom Myers regarding the TIF rebate process. Chief?
Chief, don't feel alone now. It's you and Shar.
How quickly the tides have turned.
We're glad the chief and Shar stuck around.
Good evening, members of the village board, staff, and Shar and the press. My name's Tom Myers. I'm the fire chief of the Montgomery Fire District. I'm just catching some of this from the agenda item on the TIF rebate resolution. So I've reviewed the TIF resolution that is in your packet this evening, and you know, again, I think we've talked about it enough. I think the board has had some good discussion and come to some good conclusions on how the wording should be in a resolution. So with that, I just want to move on to the TIF rebate process itself. I know there's another item on the agenda this evening to talk about the actual rebate for the 2015 assessment year. So as I review that, I just have some quick questions on the math, because we've had an agreement, a resolution before, and the calculation of the math, and especially when we look at buildings that have improved or redeveloped, and I think that's the hang-up of how we move forward with the math calculation, and what is an improvement on a building, and how is that looked at with the assessed value of property. So I think we've had plenty of discussion on that. I know the village board didn't want to come up with a list of items that were yay and nay, but I think as we move through here, we need to take a look at exactly why things are assessed and why they're not subject to the TIF rebate. So in the second item, the fire department's concerns are Michael's. We've had Butterball, and I think we've talked about Butterball, but I'd like to see, that was actually the first rebate process. And I know the village board said we were heading back to the first one, but I know Butterball was taken out in the first TIF rebate process of the 2014 assessment. So the 2015 assessment brings us to Michael's. And I did some research with online and things like that with the assessor's office on Michael's. There's two parcels to Michael's. There's a rear parcel that's their parking lot, and then there's a building parcel that is with the building itself. And this is where, this is kind of where I get technical on things, because in the true aspect of things, Michael's bought the building in 2014, and in 2015, the value of the property went up. The building parcel, which is the front parcel of property, went up. So I asked myself, why did that front parcel increase? Because at the time when we were looking at like a 2015 year, that was going to be assessed in the 2016 year, they were doing some major renovations during that time. So they pulled a building permit. They put over $1 million worth of gravel and improvements into the back parking lot. And my question was, why did their taxes go up on the front building? From my research, the answer was that it was based on the sale of the property. So when Michael's bought the property on the front parcel, the value that they bought that building at increased the assessed value, and therefore it was taxed accordingly. The improvements that were done during that first year of them owning that building will come out if they do come out, will come out in future assessments. So that's where I think we have to, and that's what my concern is when everybody says Michael's, they put $1 million into the parking lot. Well, then the parcel that's accounted for the $1 million worth of renovation in the parking lot should have increased based on that improvement in the parking lot. The building increased because of the sale of the building. And that's where we get into these sticky conversations about whether or not Michael should come out of the TIF rebate or stay into the TIF rebate, is based on why the price went up. And I know Justin and I had conversations of this in meetings earlier, where he mentioned, well, they assessed the property improvements for the rear parcel onto the building parcel, and that's not the way it occurred. The front parcel was based on the sale of the property, and then the rear parcel would come in the 2016 assessment, which we could probably calculate now. So when I look at that second item where you take Butterball and Michael's out, I'd like to see Justin's spreadsheets in relation to that, have time to review them, and then report back at the next board meeting on where we're at with that.
So just so I understand the question, the thought is that Michael's is two parcels. Or more than one parcel. They did parking lot improvements on one parcel, but the other parcel increased in value, or it was assessed as an increase. And potentially the first one was too. So I think that's a really good scenario that we need to look at, and we need the board to kind of weigh in on. My thinking is that, I mean, it could have been parsed up 12 ways. You know, my old house down on K Street had two parcels. One was, they were each in different counties, right? And so the front of the driveway was in Kane, and the main house was in Kendall. I guess, should we be looking at these parcels as the overall use of the land? You know, when you pave a huge area and do stormwater improvements that may have been on that first parcel, I haven't looked at the actual plat, is that an overall benefit to the use of that site, which happens to be two parcels? Or are we supposed to be looking at it with strict compliance as this is not where the improvement was. The improvement was over here. Thus, the increase in EAV on the building portion shouldn't be taken in, or it should be.
I think that that becomes a mess when you start divvying up parcels, but I think, and it may just have not come out clearly, they bought the building in 14, the value of the EAV went up in 14 prior to them doing those improvements in the back. Am I mistaken?
Right, so it's.
So the EAV went up based on
Sale of
the
the
building's valued at $700,000 and it sold for
Yeah.
800. So the EAV went up because the assessor looked at it and said it went up.
And
Then they
because
did the
assessed-
improvements.
Was it assessed as vacant property, correct, before a vacant
Well,
building?
well, I know that, I don't know, I don't know where the assessment lies in the future.
Yeah, because that's my thing
or
too,
in-
is part of
or in
this
the
TIF
past of the
was,
building.
I'm sorry. Part of the TIF was approved as vacant property, right? Or we use that word dilapidated has come up to play here and there. If it was reassessed as vacant property, as it can, as soon as you sell it and it becomes occupied, the next time they reassess that, and correct me if I'm wrong, the EAV would go up. To me, that's kind of the point of the TIF in some respects. But what were you going to add on that, Jeff? Okay.
Well, my concern is that, it's just like when you buy a new house. Everybody wants to know what the taxes are going to be when you buy a house. And the house is usually assessed at the purchase price that you bought the house at. It could have been never assessed prior to that, so it had lower taxes. You buy the house, and that purchase price now becomes the amount that it's taxed on.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm looking at is again, Michael's is a big taxpayer out there, and just to pull it off because they put $1 million worth of rocks in the back. Now, they had a lot of work that they did on the building.
Including stormwater management
The frozen
and
water
flood-
line in the front, but they did some
Wetland
storm
mitigation,
management on the, yep.
I think, I know that, well, don't downplay it that it's just gravel. It was an approved surface with stormwater management, with, I believe, wetland mitigation, a lot of improvement to the use of the site, which,
Right.
without that parking lot, they wouldn't have taken that building. So my opinion is that we look at uses. We look at the overall use of this property, and that if one doesn't quite go up to match the other one, we're not the assessor, and we're not here to figure out exactly why he did what he did. We're saying the building has improved in value, or the use of these conglomerate of parcels has improved in value that's attributed, or at least we are, to the TIF. But I actually would really like to get the board's opinion on this, because we can look at it two different ways. Here's what I want to avoid. I want to avoid us not giving clear direction to staff right now, and then having to revisit this again. Or have to revisit this every time we pull one out, or whatever the term is we're using. So if you guys have thoughts of what you would like to see happen with that, we can do anything.
I think that the overall use is, absolutely, it's the overall use. Were it not for the TIF, that property would not have been sold, it would not have been reassessed, and it would not have been frozen. Because they did do wetland mitigation, they improved the back lot, the improvements of the water main, the painting of the building, none of that matters. None of that was done prior to the sale of the building, so it didn't affect the assessed value. The paving of the parking lot with gravel and wetland mitigation and moving all of it. Were it not for the TIF, that wouldn't have happened, which again boils back down to the reason it's in the TIF, is so that it can benefit from the TIF. So I'm in favor of that it would belong in this.
I agree with,
Trustee Mirzak, if I could just say, that Michael's didn't come to town because of the TIF. They benefited nothing from the TIF. All the improvements were done at the cost of Michael's. It's very similar to like the Sugar Dome and Nexio. Everybody says Sugar Dome came to Montgomery because of the TIF. It's in the TIF, but it hasn't financially benefited from the TIF. It was coming here whether there was a TIF or not. And that's how Nexio is. They have gotten no money from the TIF funds to build their building, just like Michael's. They didn't come here because of the TIF. They came here because of they found a building and they located here. So they reap no benefits from the TIF unless at some point in time down the road, an existing building says, wow, I'm in a TIF fund, I want to apply to the Village of Montgomery now to utilize funds to train my people, to make improvements in my building. So TIF funds can be used by buildings existing in the TIF to improve a parking lot. That when we looked at Rochester Midland and we said, you know, there's a pothole in Rochester Midland's parking lot, and grass growing through it. If Rochester Midland wanted to redo their parking lot, they could actually request funds out of the TIF fund to make improvements on their property. But Michael's reaped no benefits of TIF funds, neither did the Sugar Dome, Nexio. Old Dominion is not in the TIF out there. So these people were coming whether there was a TIF or not.
Okay, well, and maybe
But-
we'll never
and
be able to
it's
figure
up
that
for
out.
you, right, and
Yeah.
it's up for you to.
Yeah, but what we can say is
decide
that
anyway. You have the-
Michaels would have never, Michaels can't go on that site or wouldn't have bought the property if they didn't do that parking lot. I know it seems, you know, we can,
That was a big sale.
yeah, I mean, there's nowhere to park all of their heavy machinery. So that to me is part of the use. So it sounds like Doug is in favor of looking at it holistically like that. Trustee Youngerman, you were going to add?
I agree with Trustee Marisak. My only question is, was Michael's pulled out a year before it should have been? As far as the EAV and the improvements and when those improvements were assessed and that sort of thing. That's my only question, but I agree with what Trustee Marisak said.
I know we're going a little bit out of order, but we are effectively doing
F?
E, well, I guess E/F. So we're starting the deliberations. I actually don't mind doing that out of order if there's any objection.
Is there a chance I could get a copy of that, Mayor, for
Yeah.
my review? Or
Yep.
do I need to go through the process?
Yeah, well, you have to submit a
Pass me up.
FOIA
Hey,
for
pass
that.
me
That'll
up.
take
That's why
7 to
I'm
10 days.
asking.
I think he's just trying to make sure there's enough for everybody. So I think Justin will walk us through this here.
The base year for the TIF is levy year 2013, and it's fiscal year 15. So the EAV in 2013 was actually $289,596. Levy year 2014, which would be fiscal year 16, the EAV actually went down rather than going up. When you're looking at 2015, and fiscal year 2017, the EAV went from $266 up to $398,000. It's a change of about $108,000. The percent change, the 108 over the 289 is 38%. The average of all the other parcels was 8%. So in this year, the tax increment on that particular parcel would be $11,534.80. And we are actually using, because the EAV went down in the second year, we're actually using 3% of that original number. 3% of that 289.
There was no actual rebate in 2014 because the EAV went down. There was nothing to rebate.
Okay.
So
What Justin did was went back to, and took the 289 and took 3%
Of that number.
of that
So
number.
Because there was no
Because there-
growth, we
Right.
gave it 3% growth.
Right.
Correct.
Got it.
Because we didn't want to say there's nothing.
And you said parcel, but are you talking about one parcel or both, or both parcels in the property?
This is just the one parcel,
Okay, the building portion.
yes.
Okay,
So the $920.58 would go back to the other districts, and then the net staying in the tax increment would be $10,614.22. So if you look at the fair value being 33%, the change in the fair value would be $326,000. We feel that's a partial year. When you look at levy year 2016, fiscal year 18, which we have not gotten there yet. But the EAV is actually 622,000. The change from the 289 to the 622 is $332,000. The percent change there is 115% from that original 289. The average of the other parcels was 15%. This is part of the process that I go through. I look at the percentages and compare it to all the other parcels of that type. So the 2016 levy year, the tax increment would be $32,772.20. The $948.20, so we take that $920 from the previous year, we add 3% to it. So going back to the other taxing districts would be $948, and then we'd retain $31,824. The fair value change of just under $1 million, so it's the 332, 33%. When Michaels pulled the permit for their building for the work that we talked about earlier, it's the site development, including the storage yard. The fair value change was $1,170,000. And so when we look at the fair value change of $998,000 and the permit value being $1.1 million, we felt that that was a fairly close change, that is the reason the parcel went up. I can answer any questions at this point.
When was that permit pulled?
The permit was pulled in June of 2015.
When you say site development, including storage yard, somebody said they put $1 million in gravel in that back. Are you saying only 170,000 was on the building then? I know.
There's a different permit. There's a different permit that they received for redoing the building.
Okay.
We are not taking that into consideration.
Okay.
We're just taking the permit that had to do with the $1,170,000. That site development was for the entire site. So it was for both parcels for the use, not just $1,170,000 in the back.
Gotcha.
Because the
And that was
wetland
all
mitigation comes in to the other parcel as well.
And that was,
The wetland mitigation and some of that driveway fencing, all that stuff came into.
The fencing, and also on the right side, they took all those junk trees and everything and put a driveway through it. And
so this,
but also, didn't they have water problems in the back, and they changed all the water? And then they put a whole new wall on the back.
They have a combination of, in the storage yard itself, drainage, stormwater management. Pete can better address it than I can, but that's part of their overall stormwater management plan, as well as the property to the south side of the building, where you just referenced there's a drive that was added, as well as the wetland mitigation area was added, and detention.
Here, I have a question. So we, based on looking at this, the amount, when we froze this, we froze it at 289,596 because the 266 was lower. So we did the right thing and we went actually back a year further back. But the permit was issued in June. They don't do the improvements until after they get the permit, right? So those permits couldn't have affected the assessed value of the property until after they closed out. I feel like we pulled it a year early.
It should be the 398,456 and not the 289,596, correct? Is that what you feel, Doug?
Well, I'm thinking the permit was pulled in 15, and we're assessing a number that was from 14, and they requested the permit. They didn't do the work until, so how can we go back in time to pull the assessed value from prior to them issuing the permit?
So with the tax levy year, the tax levy is done for the 2015 year. That tax levy is done in December of 2015. And it's collected in calendar 2016. So
Okay,
that's,
I see
so
the
that's
fiscal year.
why we are saying that they would have done the work before we did the 2015 levy in the fall, in December, I should say.
But when was the building permit signed off on?
You mean site development permit?
Site development.
I don't have that with me right now.
No, that's fine.
I didn't think to put the gravel into 215. Am I wrong?
No, that's when they did that.
Gravel,
That's when
right.
they did that, then.
Right.
So wait, but they put the gravel in 2015. In December of 2015, the property was assessed.
And the assessment for 2015 improvement is payable in 2016. So if I could just a minute, I have both tax bills for Michael's. The 2015 tax bill on the building was, so the tax is due in 2015. So in 2014, Michael's paid $29,267 in taxes. In 2015, it jumped to $42,220. What I'm saying is the jump of that, because of the timing of the improvements, this jump was when they bought the building, and the building was now assessed on the building property. The items that were done in 2015 assessed on the 2016 tax bill. Here's what their tax bill looks like in 2016. 2015 taxes were $42.20, and their tax bill in 2016 were $61,287. So they had a huge jump between 2015 and 2016. They had a huge jump based on the sale of the building. And then in 2016, they had a huge jump from 2015 to 2016 based on the improvements. And that's where I would agree that Michael's is coming out a year too early.
What makes this even more and more confusing is that we are talking levy years, tax year, fiscal year, which just makes it much more confusing.
And with this assessed value, it's all calendar year.
Yeah.
So when you have an improvement, now, if they pulled the permit in June of 2015, like Justin says, and they got their final occupancy in January of 2016, then it missed the 2016 assessed year, and it's going to come on their 2016 bill, or that's going to be payable in 2017. You know what I mean? So really, you should ask, if we really want to get real technical, if the building permit was pulled in June of 2015, if it was closed out and sent to the tax assessor's office by December 31st of 2015, it's going to be assessed on that 2015 tax bill payable in 2016. Now, if they didn't get their final occupancy until January or February of 2016, then it's going to get assessed at the end of 2016, payable on 2017. So that would explain, in my opinion, the second jump in the tax bill for their 2016 taxes, not the first jump. The first jump was the sale price of the building.
Right.
The second price was the improvements, and it jumped about the same amount of money.
So these are all external improvements. Is there any way that you can definitively say the assessor didn't visit the site before December of 2015, saw all of the work they already completed, and on his own determined the increase in value? Like, there's no way to know that, right? So it's plausible or possible that he did that.
Right, I can tell you that the back parking lot, the back parking lot for Michael's, in 2014, their taxes were $329. The back parking lot in 2015 was $330. It went up about $1. Again, the back parking lot in 2015, like I just mentioned, is $330.28. And the back parking lot in 2016 went down to $323.48. So from 2014 to 2015, it went up $1. And from 2015 to 2016, it actually went down $7.
Yeah.
Do you think 2017 is going to go
Who knows?
higher
But
than,
it's-
it's going to be in 2019 then, or what do you?
Yeah, it's definitely not going to be a million.
No.
And I think that's my point, is that you don't get that parking lot, you don't get the building assessed at this value just for selling it. They put $1 million into the use of that property. So again, I think we've heard trustee Marisak and Youngerman said that they would like to look at the overall use. The math, we can figure that out, but the use of the parcels, that whether or not the assessor attributes it fully to one parcel or another parcel, generally speaking, the building parcel would be higher. Actually, not generally, every time the building parcel would be assessed at a higher value. And we're trying to get into the mind of the assessor. The reality is, a building permit was pulled, the fair market value of the parcel increased by the amount that they said they were putting into it. And so we see that as TIF growth, something that we could capture in the TIF growth.
The first year or the second year?
The
first year, the bump was because of the sale of the property.
I think that's what
The second year was the bump for the improvement. That's why I agree with trustee Marzek and trustee Youngerman that it's pulled out a year too early.
right, but when I asked the question, in June, they started the work, in December, do you know if the assessor visited the site and saw the parking lot and assessed the property accordingly?
A lot of
'Cause
times they make that assessment based on the information that the building department sends over
True.
to the Aurora Township
And- yeah.
Assessor's Office. They don't necessarily, and they go off of the value of the building permit, so they may not even visit the site.
That's
They're-
true, but could they? Do they? Have they ever?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
So it's possible that that this is part of that. Whether I'm going to,
Right.
be a stick in the mud about that.
You guys have the final say anyway. I'm
I
just.
know. No, but it's a
side.
point that I want to fully flesh out now so we understand what's going on in the future.
Well, and you're right, Mayor. Here's where I'm going to look at what buildings you're going to freeze, and I'm going to come up with the justification of why I don't think it should be frozen or why it's a year too early. And that's all based on when the improvements were and what the improvements were. You know, is a gravel parking lot, no matter how much gravel you put in the backyard of your house, are your home taxes going to go up? Probably not. But there was a lot of wetlands done out there, and the building was in a state where they had a lot of work to do, more than what they expected to do, actually, because the front water line service was frozen. So they had to dig up the front yard of that building and replace that because it was frozen. I mean, the whole building was vacant.
Yeah, okay.
So that's all I have. I thank everyone for their discussions, and if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
All right. Thank you. All right, so I'll move on and we'll talk about this in a little bit here. Moving on to consent, I'll read the items and entertain a motion for approval. We have minutes to the village board meeting of May 8th, accounts payable through May 18th of fiscal year 17, accounts payable through May 18th of fiscal year 2018, accounts receivable report for April of 2017, appointment of Pat Torrance to the Historic Preservation Commission, appointment of Gretchen Countryman to the HPC, and ordinance 1770 granting a special use for Earth Mover Credit Union. This is the second reading.
So moved.
Second?
Trustee Youngerman.
Yes.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
And Trustee Heinz.
That carries 6-0. Thank you. Items for separate action, A and B, we'll discuss together and vote. Actually, we're not voting on B. Recommendation is Zoning Board of Appeals, 2017-009V, which is a fence height variance for Old Dominion. And then item B is ordinance 1771, granting the variance for Old Dominion. Director Young.
Thank you. The petitioner is Electric Guard Dog on behalf of Old Dominion Freight Line. They've requested that a zoning variance be granted to allow a 10-foot high fence within the M2 zoning district, general manufacturing. If approved, this electrified fence would be located inside another fence, an 8-foot fence that's already under construction, that's cyclone and will have some amount of barbed wire at the top. Old Dominion feels that this is necessary for the security of their property. This electrified fence, as I mentioned, is being requested at 10-foot high. The standards for the zoning district allow for an 8-foot-high fence. The staff's recommendation to the ZBA, excuse me, last month was to, earlier this month, was to deny the request. The ZBA on May 4th, by a vote of 4-2, recommended that the village board does approve the variance itself. The applicant was unable to be here tonight. We stated to him earlier today that we would go through this with the village board, ask that you accept the recommendation or accept the report from the ZBA meeting itself, and any presentation that they would like to give could be done at the next meeting in 2 weeks.
This is just first reading.
And this is first reading. We're not asking for approval at this time.
Okay. All right. Any comments from?
If there are any comments, we can provide that to the applicant. If there's any conditions or comments that the board would like to have, please relay those to me.
I know I went to that planning commission meeting specifically related to this fence, and there was some suggestions by planning commission to lower it. There's some concerns from the applicant, and I just want to clarify, this electrified fence is not an electric fence. You're not going to die if you hit this fence. It's more like a tripwire. If someone were to go over the fence and hit this, or someone breached their fence, it interrupts the signal and triggers the cameras to come on and send a message to somebody to watch it. So it's not, Steve's not going to climb over the fence and we're going to find him cooked there tomorrow. It's just a warning system for
Steve
them.
can
And some of
climb.
the value of some of the things that they,
Steve couldn't climb it, I don't know why, but go ahead.
one of the values that they mentioned was, and this was rather shocking to me, a trailer load of cigarettes, $2 million.
Wow.
Yeah, $2 million for a semi full of cigarettes. So I think lowering the fence and doing some of those things would possibly affect their insurance rates and things. And this fence is really not a fence as much as it's standards that are up higher with a wire. And one of the requests I made to the petitioner was, bring a piece of the wire. What is this wire going to look like?
Excuse me, it's not just one wire, it's a grid system.
It's lines.
It forms a grid, lines.
I guess our main concern, what is the appearance of this from the road?
Fence is itself, and that's part of their presentation, so I apologize for not having
it's
that.
fine.
But the information is that it would be 10-foot high, it would be black in color, and it would be a series of lines and/or grids that.
I think it's just horizontal lines, based on the drawings. There was no verticals.
So the sign that says 7,000 volts,
The signs would be periodically placed around the fence.
It's a standard battery, I think he said, and it's not really, he's got them on all, 50 sites, he said. He's never had any problems with them, anybody trying, because once they see an 8-foot, and then they see a 10-foot higher that's electrified, they don't want to go any farther. But talking about seeing something, if you go right down Orchard now and you look at Old Dominion, it's like, these trucks are huge, but they look like little ants. I mean, it's so far away that I can't see a cosmetic part of it, of anybody even seeing the barbed wire,
well,
not
but down to
alone.
Alcott, the fence that they're installing now gets relatively close to Alcott. I
Yeah,
think that
okay.
would be the only concern, at least in my mind, would be just the appearance along Alcott. And it's an industrial corridor. They already have an 8-foot with barbed wire at the top of it. What kind of secondary, visual detriment would this put on the whole area? Probably nothing. You probably wouldn't even notice it. It sounds like a lot of security, and I get why, but
Apparently, they haul for gun manufacturers as well. So there's some reasons, some products and things that they haul that carry some large value, and that's was part of their issue. And just to clarify, volts don't kill, amps do.
Trustee Marisak is correct that it was not a grid, I'm sorry, it's a series of horizontal lines. You can see that on the page that identifies the signage. It's number 2 of 3 in the handouts.
Okay.
So if I'm reading correctly, the vote at the zoning board of appeals was in favor of allowing this?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Do you want to handle them as separate items, or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, the vote, because we're not voting on the ordinance today. Well, if there's more discussion questions, we can certainly do that. If there's a motion to approve the recommendation,
So moved.
Second.
any discussion on the recommendation? This is merely accepting their report, not approving the actual offense. Go ahead.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Heinz? And Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
All right, so that carries 6-0. So item B, ordinance 1771, is granting the variance, which we're not voting on tonight. Does the board want to see more information from the petitioner at a future meeting? Do you want to put it on for separate action, or would you like to see it on consent?
I'm fine with consent. I don't need to see any more information either.
I guess if anybody feels that they might vote against the ordinance, we can't do that, but. So let's add it on for item for separate action.
Thank you.
If between now and 2 weeks from now, you'd like to see a presentation from the petitioner, let staff know so that they can attend that meeting.
Thank you.
And I didn't mean to put anybody on the spot with the actual vote. Apologize.
I'd like to see a demonstration of Trustee Marisak trying to get over that fence and see what happens.
All righty.
You put a $2 million bill on the other side and we can talk.
All right, move on to item C, ordinance 1772, declaring surplus property. This is a waiver of first, passage on the second.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, I bring ordinance number 1772 before you. As you mentioned, this would be waiver of the first, passage on the second. Reading to declare several items of village property surplus. Upon your approval, I will begin marketing the items for resale. The replacement vehicles and equipment have previously been approved for purchase and are beginning to become available. The items include 2 2012 Chevy Tahoes, formerly or currently being used as squads, 1 2012 Chevy Malibu, an administrative vehicle in the police department, 1 2007 and 1 2012 Case combination backhoe with a few miscellaneous attachments, 2 2006 Chevy pickups from Public Works, 1 2008 Chevy utility truck, 1 2006 Chevy Trailblazer from Community Development, 1 2007 Bobcat Toolcat with a few miscellaneous attachments, 1 enclosed trailer, and 1 2007 International 5-yard snowplow and salt truck with related equipment. Those are all pictured in your packet with some details for each. Again, ordinance 1772 declaring surplus of property is waiver on the first, passage on the second reading tonight. If there's any questions, I'm happy to entertain those now.
Thank you.
I just have one. Have we offered to Deputy Chief Sanders if he wanted to purchase the Malibu for his personal vehicle? I just wanted to, I'd give him first right of refusal on that hot rod.
Do we strip these?
Yes.
Of like our logos before?
So there are 2 ways to auction police and fire vehicles. They can be totally stripped and sold to the general public, or they can be left somewhat intact and then they're restricted to other agencies. We've chosen to strip them in the past. We believe that it gets a little bit more attention. There are more people potentially interested in those. Doesn't mean that somebody couldn't ultimately put it back, but it would take some effort to do that, and it would be intentional. The way they leave us, they are stripped of any Montgomery logos, any working sirens, lights, that kind of thing.
And how do you plan, or how do you market these normally?
Most of these go through a site and a service called GovDeals. We post them on the auction site, and then anybody can register to become a bidder on that site. The site does a very good job in determining fraudulent bidders, unlike some other avenues. and that's growing in popularity, as I'm sure you can understand. So we confirm that pavement is received and is good before the vehicle's allowed to leave the premises, reducing our exposure. That's how we've typically done it. The two case combination backhoes will be used as trade-ins on the current purchase. That was brought to you in a previous meeting. It reduced the purchase price.
Okay, so it doesn't sound like I just want to make sure that we're not, going to find Joe, essentially hand-picking folks to buy these, right? It's an open forum for qualified folks to bid on these, unless we're using it as a trade-in.
Correct. In very rare cases, and I think once last year of all the items that we auctioned off, there were no real sustainable bids on the item.
Yeah.
It didn't meet the reserve value. So at those times, then we generally ask for permission to trade them in or sell them outright.
Yep.
But at that point, we've already gone through the exercise of making it available to the population and with no interest.
Perfect. All right. Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second. All right, call the roll, please.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
And Trustee Heinz.
That carries 6-0. Thank you, Todd. Item D, award of a contract to American Road Maintenance for shared use path and police parking lot seal coat in the amount of $50,873. Director Hoppenstedt?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll open this up to Mr. Wallers, Engineer Wallers, as well, because he may have something to add. Essentially, we put the seal coating of the police department and some shared use paths out to bid for, again, seal coating. Ironically, we only received one bid back. There were numerous contractors that looked at the project and pulled plan sets to review the project, but for whatever reason, there's only one that came back. It is slightly over budget. We did discuss the possibility of putting it back out to bid to see if we could gain some more interest, and it seems that if we were to do that, we may actually deter the one current bidder. So we're recommending approval of the current bid. If Engineer Wallers doesn't have anything else to add on that item.
I'd like to just add some background to what we're trying to accomplish. So on a 3-year cycle, we try to seal the parking lots so police, then we do Village Hall and Public Works. And the Sakrete sealer, which is very popular and effective, is a good product, but that marketplace is evolving with new technologies and new types of materials that are out there. We've mentioned this before. We're doing some test strips in the village where we've used we actually used GSP 88 on one of the bike paths last year. That was the first year we bid it. And we're doing some road test strips as well. And we think that these products, that the GSP 88, which is a gilsonite product, and then the CRF product, which is a restorative sealer, they have better long-term upside in terms of preserving our pavement and providing some additional structure to the resealing. But we're limited with the lots that we've already put the coal tar sealer down, the conventional sealer, because the rejuvenators won't penetrate through that effectively, and we'll get some delamination of that material. So in the short term, we're going to continue to use the coal tar sealers on our parking lots. But as long term, when we start looking at mill and overlay of our parking lots, let's say out 15 to 20 years from when we built them, then when we go to restore them, we're probably going to try to move all towards these newer product lines of the rejuvenators and the gilsonite type products to get away from the coal tar. So we're kind of in that period where we're doing a little bit of both, and we're trying to also, we've had trouble getting multiple bids on the seal coats, and we can get into the rationale because a lot of the seal coat guys aren't into the prevailing wage. They're not maybe used to issuing bonds, because oftentimes it's direct contracting with shopping centers or businesses, and they just, engage them. So the municipal marketplace isn't where they shine, typically, whereas like the pavement guys, the road guys, that's where they make their money. So we had 9 plan holders, and we got 1 bid back. So a little unusual, but we've had those issues in the past. And as Todd said, it's, you can see on the engineer's estimate, depending on the combinations you choose, it was depending on how far off the budgeting we were. Now, we think it's reasonable, the discrepancy that we had, and we think we're getting good value. So we think it's worth proceeding with the bids that we have, and we don't think we're going to gain a lot of advantage of rebidding this. So, it's not for lack of trying to get more bids, but it's just one of the circumstances. Occasionally, these things will happen, and oftentimes you can't explain it fully. So, we think the strategy is sound, and we think going forward it makes a lot of sense, and we'll continually update the board. But we like these new products, and we'd like to use them on the bike paths because we haven't sealed those. So that's the reason we want to use the GSP 88 Gilsonite on the bike paths, because we can. And, we'd like to, we think we're getting really good value on our bike paths that way for, that we think we'll get longer life out of our bike paths that'll extend that length between where we'll have to resurface them. So that's just a little bit of the philosophy, and, it's unfortunate we didn't get more bids, but we did have quite a few people interested in it. And, the reason they don't choose to submit is, it varies. We have reached out to some of them. Sometimes it's just as simple as they got it off their radar and forgot to bid it, and that's one of the contractors reported that. So, these things happen.
What is with the price differences where in the letter you got 50,000 and they got 58.41, and then you got your estimate of 45, yet you have it at 43 or 52, 40. In other words, they don't match up.
Yeah, I was just looking at that. So what it is the cover sheet.
It's because we mixed and matched, Denny, and that's why in the cover letter, so we picked, so for alternate 1, we picked we did the seal coat for the police, and then we switch over to the Gilsonite for the bike path. So you got to add the 22,276 with 28,597. That's how you get to the 50,873.
Okay.
So we're trying to, again, we're selecting what we think the best product is for the parking lot and the best product for the bike trail. And we wanted to give maximum flexibility to the bidders, because if for some reason it was a tremendous savings, we would want to rethink it. But again, we're trying to attract these people to bid and give them as much flexibility. So, but I think, again, the reason it is confusing, but we picked item 2 out of the top bracket and then item 1 out of the alternate 2, and then that's why they don't add up.
All right.
And it states that in the EI cover letter, just in the village cover letter, then at the front.
Yeah.
We just state that to be a little clearer, but makes sense.
It's probably a little more complicated than it needed to be, but,
That's right. If we worked with,
trying to get as much flexibility as we could into the program. But we do think there's some real advantages to using these new products.
have we worked with American Road before?
I can't remember, did they do our, Mayor, I don't remember who got the bid last year.
Okay.
It may have been them.
I don't believe that's who got it last year in Montgomery. I have worked with them previously in another municipality. I don't know that carries much weight here, but with good success.
Yeah, okay. Any other questions for staff?
Motion to approve?
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Marisak?
Yes.
Trustee Bond?
Yes.
Trustee Spurling?
Yes.
Trustee Lee?
Yes.
Trustee Heinz?
Yay.
And Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
That carries 6-0. Thank you both. All right, moving on to item E, we have Resolution 2017-003, authorizing supporting the rebate of TIF funds. And then, so we'll discuss both of these, E and F, together. F is the levy.
let's go ahead and address.
Okay, I like your ideas.
Thank you.
Resolution 2017-003, we'll discuss that first, which is the actual resolution.
Correct. Since the last meeting, the changes that have been made are, if you recall, at the last meeting, I passed out some language at the meeting to take out some language that really was from the original 2014 resolution, but didn't need to be there in the new resolution. So we put that language in. There was a spot where trustee Marisak saw where it said village and felt it should say TIF fund instead. Actually, as I went through, I found a couple other places that were the same, so I changed all of those. And then the last change, I passed over to the attorney at that section 2 to break it out. She broke it out into a 2A and 2B instead of a 2 and 3, but broke that out. So we'd be happy to answer any questions. If it meets what you think, what you're looking for, say go ahead and approve it. If there are changes you'd still like to see, then let us know and we'll.
I want to clarify that the 3%, so if the amount is $100,000, next year it's 103,000. The year after that, it's 3% on top of the 103.
Correct.
I can't do the math. I'll turn to the attorney.
Yes, it compounds. It's not,
Okay.
it's not 3,000 every year.
Correct. I just wanted to make
Compounds.
sure that it was.
Yeah, it's
that it was
3% of whatever
compounded.
the year before
The previous
was.
number was. Perfect. That's all I needed. Thank you to staff for fixing and tweaking and working with fire district and all the taxing districts to come up with the new verbiage. Appreciate it.
I'm fine with the resolution.
And Chief, I don't mean to put you on the spot. Is this something that the fire district is comfortable with? Okay. The implementation, okay. Okay. So it's. Yeah. Awesome. Thank you. All right, if there's no more discussion, I'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee.
Yes.
Trustee Heinz.
And that carries 6-0. Item F, levy year 2015, TIF 2 rebate approval.
Okay, we put this on here just in case you did approve the resolution tonight. Under the new resolution, our process will normally be, we will go to the JRB in December, and we will present our recommendation to the JRB. We will get, they will have a chance then to hear that, and then we will bring it to the board, and if there are comments from the JRB, we would bring those to you. Obviously, the JRB for this has passed, but we sort of had a JRB here this evening. Staff obviously feels that from reviewing it, that the increase in levy year 2015, we felt was due to the improvements done. The fire district does not agree with that, and so, as we said we would do under the resolution, we would make you aware if there was not, full agreement. So the options you have before you, you can approve this tonight. The other reason we put it on here tonight was to try and get the rebates going so we could get the money out. So you always have the option to not act on it tonight if you want more time. We were just trying to, like I said, get the process moving. If you do want to act on it tonight, then your decision is do you want the Michaels to be, the village to keep a portion of the increment, the TIF fund to keep a portion of the increment this year, or do you want all of the Michaels rebated for this year? So, like I said, we can bring you more information if there's something you feel we could bring that answers it, or if you feel you've heard the discussion from Justin and from Tom and you're ready
I'd just like to know when that permit closed.
Yeah.
Because that really is the determining, that's the silver bullet, is when did it close? So when would it be affected?
And that was for the site development permit. And what's the is that this, because there's no CO for a site development permit, is there?
Yeah, there's a process to confirm that the plans have been met in terms of the site improvements. So there's bonding that goes into that, and then there's also an inspection to determine whether or not what was on the plans and the approved plans has been actually constructed. So essentially, yes, there is a CO for the site.
I think for me, the indicator would be when that final inspection was done
versus when the assessment was,
Yeah.
because we don't send that to the assessor until it's closed, right? Until it's got a check mark next to it, then we send it to the assessor?
I can't tell you categorically when the assessor gets the information from the building permit. I'll have to look into that. I don't know exactly if that's done at the time of the CO or if it's done at some time between the issuance of the permit and the CO. I don't know.
And it seems like we're splitting hairs, but that seems to be important for a site development permit, because that's different from a building permit, especially interior renovations, because it would not be impossible for the assessor to see the improvement himself or somebody from staff, from his staff, and reassess the property because there's, significant improvement on site that they just happened to see and wanted to capture that growth. So I'm curious to see what our process is for a site development permit or grading permit, how that, closing that out and giving that to the assessor, if that's the same as a building permit or different.
Do you have a comment?
I was able to, during the meeting, look up, there were actually 2 sales on the property, one in December of 2013 for $1.2 million, and then one in March of 2015 for $2 million. So if you're looking at the values there, the values are not matching up with the EAVs in those particular years. So if you look at the $400,000, that should show either 2013 or 2014, and it doesn't.
Okay.
It looks like we might lose 3 weeks between now and our next meeting.
June 12th? Yeah.
What, and the amount we're talking about is $900 divided by,
Well, it depends. If the TIF keeps a portion of the increment, then the $920 is what we would rebate. But if you view that the TIF shouldn't keep any, then we would be rebating the 11,000.
okay.
And for me, I'm looking at this, just so that I'm clarifying. We froze it at 289,596, and in my head, I'm thinking we should be freezing it at 398, not the 622.
I agree.
I'm thinking we should be freezing it at the 398, based on when that permit closed, or
Yeah, but
when that
but
permit
the
gets signed.
improvements were done, it could have been assessed.
But it could not have been.
True.
So again, it goes to that process of, do we want to just throw the dice out there and guess, or do we want to have a process that we say, when the permit closes, this is when we do it?
And that makes
Or-
sense to me for building stuff. But for a site that anybody driving by Orchard could see the improvements.
The President probably saying it could have been assessed before it was closed
So
out.
for a building permit, I get that. For a site development permit,
There's got to be an indicator for me. There's got to be an
actually, the
indicator.
indicator is the huge jumps in the EAV that match what they said they were putting in. That's the honest indicator that Justin is using. He looks at these and says, you know what, that didn't increase. They must not have captured this. Or this one matched up almost exactly with the fair market value of the property, with what they said they were putting in. So, it's up to the pleasure of the board, what we do.
I'm inclined to support staff's recommendation on it. They've spent a lot of time with this.
Yeah. Okay. Denny, Teresa? And we could certainly add this to the agenda for June 12th for approval. Chief?
Just to help you guys, if you look at the tax bill, the back parking lot tax bill didn't increase at all. So all the improvements in the back end, actually through the years, as I mentioned earlier, went down $13.
Yeah,
So there's no assessed value that's assessed on that back parking lot for improvements.
right.
So the indicator is the sale of the building, the 1 year, and then the following year improvements. The back end of the place didn't have any tax, any increased taxes based on assessed value because of the parking lot.
Right,
So if that helps support that.
okay. And it sounds like we're looking at the overall use of the parcel as opposed to individual, or use of the properties as a whole, is what the board seemed to agree on, so. Since we don't have consensus, I think we add this to the June 12th. I'd be curious to see if our process for building permits is, closing out building permits is different from site development permits. Because when I deal with site development permits, sometimes those can be open for a very long time.
That's true,
Especially when it
because-
comes to like wetland, so.
It's definitely true. I mean, obviously, the renovations to this building took quite a while as well. However, the site development, our experience is that can go on for quite a while, and a lot of it is seasonal because of either the wetland mitigation or the ability to put in the stormwater management system. And also, it might seem like a lesser item, but landscaping has to be established and is reviewed a year later after it's been put in. So, and that's seasonal as well, as Trustee Youngerman knows. So that can drag on for quite a length of time.
And so, yeah, so we need clarification of when, what's our process for getting that to the assessor? Because I'm assuming we would.
I would believe that we give I might be wrong, but I believe that we give the information to the assessor sooner than later, meaning once the building permit is issued and there's a value of the improvements given in the building permit, I believe that that's done pretty close to upfront when the permit is issued, not at time of CO. But I'll have to double check on that.
Okay. All right, so we'll add this to the June 12th meeting. If anybody has any questions before then, we'll do that. Does that work?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Items for discussion, the quarterly financial reports. Director Van Voorn.
Thank you, President Brawley. As in the past, I'm not going to go over every item, but as of April 30th, obviously, we're through 12 months of the year. The numbers that are included in the report are unaudited numbers, so this was what it was as of April 30th. There are other items that we take into consideration with the audit. So, one of the ones that I wanted to point out was state sales tax. The budget was $3.8 million through April. We're $192,000 higher than last year, and we're approximately $52,000 above projections, mostly due to the new commercial openings since last year. In the capital improvement fund, which is page 3, actually, I'm sorry, the infrastructure improvement fund, which is page 4. Sorry about that. So if we look at the non-home rule sales tax, we had budgeted $2,646,000. We don't have a comparison to last year, but it is $80,000 above what our projections were through April. And then also just want to point out the last 3 pages of the report are the cash and investments that the village holds as of April 30th. If there's any questions, I can answer those at this time.
I have one. Page 3, telecommunications, bottom item. This is continuing to decline, correct? With the advent of the cell phone and lack of people having landline phones?
Correct.
And we don't, do we collect for satellite TV? No.
No.
So,
We'll see a huge boost when people start to sign up for MetroNet. Maybe.
they've marked my yard again.
Yeah.
So, I think they're coming, they were on my street this week, so I'm waiting for the neighbors to start calling.
One question I had on page 4 was the water fund. The revenues look like they're down 700,000 from what we anticipated. Am I reading that correctly?
So this has to do with the timing of the journal entries and the timing of the audit. So when we expect that the June billing is actually for March and April, so we'll make a journal entry for that. And when we do that, you'll see this bump up roughly $500,000 to $600,000. So.
Okay. And the one question that I had is kind of related to this, but more related just to general budget. The grand bargain in Springfield, the numbers that are floating around with cuts to LGDF. I haven't read it today, and it varies, but it looks like there could be a potential cut to that, 10%. I can't remember what I saw recently. A 10% cut of our LGDF would be how much?
That would be about just under $200,000.
Okay. So if Springfield tries to balance their debt on our backs, it would cost us a few officers. You could look at it that way, so.
Ask for 10, get 5, it's down to 100,000.
What's that?
I said they wanted a 200,000, they knocked it down to 5%, it'd be 100,000, everybody be happy. Right.
So, that would come directly out of our reserves, but at any rate, just want to call attention to that. We continue to fight for that. All right. Thank you. Any new or unfinished?
Yes, I actually have a couple of items this evening.
Okay.
I know. First of all, the planting of the flowers at the VFW was scheduled for this past Saturday. That's a Rotary Club project, and we are postponing that, or we did postpone that. I'm still working on an official date. So we'll figure that out. That's coming. Anyway, I'd like to have those flowers in prior to the VFW's service for Memorial Day, which is this coming Monday. I just wanted to mention that to the other board members. If you can make it, please try to come out and show support for our veterans. Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm trying to think of what date, did you say this Saturday coming up?
No.
Friday.
No, I said their ceremony is next Monday at Riverside Cemetery.
And when are you planting? Oh, just to show up to the ceremony?
Right.
Okay.
I'm just asking everyone to show up. Usually Trustee Bond and I are at many of the VFW events, so I just wanted to ask if everyone else would try to make an effort if they're in town.
What's your anticipated planting date?
I'm hoping for Friday, but I see thunderstorms again. We'll talk about that later, the flowers later. The other thing I wanted to mention, I wanted to congratulate Engineer Wallers. This coming Wednesday, he is going to be sworn in on the library board, so I just wanted to say congratulations. That's all I have.
Congratulations.
I had a comment for our Director of Public Works. I've received no complaints about odor from water for probably 4 weeks, maybe more. I don't know if I'm living in a bubble, but I wanted to report that.
You want, Todd, I'm close enough. Did you want me to give him one?
I can't remember when we had the special meeting, but the problem began, the complaints declined rapidly after the new equipment was calibrated.
I as well have not received any complaints, so thank you.
And that number is?
Thank you. Anything else? Trustee Hines?
Under new business?
Yep.
I don't know if anybody knows it, but our ordinance officer got bit. A dog jumped over the fence, got him, and he had stitches in his arm. So, I don't know what the village can do about that, but they should do something, I think.
Yeah, and we can and will, correct? Yeah. Yeah, I heard about that. That's unfortunate. Certainly don't wish that on any employee or anybody in the village, so.
I think when we do new developments, we're going to have to look at something taller than a 4-foot fence, too. Quite a few dogs can jump that.
Maybe like a 10-foot electric one. The sign, chief?
Yes, thank you. I spoke to Village Attorney Kirsten here about 5 o'clock tonight about that dog issue.
Okay.
So it's the second time. We had another incident in April. The trial is this Thursday, so we're going to keep them separate, but we will be back in front of you for an update on that.
Okay.
Good bull.
Chief, it's the same
Is
dog?
that the same dog?
Correct, same dog.
Does this incident get to come up in court Thursday?
Well, without giving our strategy away.
Okay, never mind. We're done. I'm not staying. We're done.
No, won't come up this.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else? All right, hearing none, the Plan Commission meeting for Thursday, June 1st has been canceled. Our next village board meeting will be in this room at 7 p.m. on June 12th. With that, I'll entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss litigation where the Village of Montgomery finds that such action is probable or imminent pursuant to 5 ILCS 120/2 C11.
I'm sorry, what did you say was canceled?
Plan Commission.
On June 1st?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry, so moved.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Spurling.
Yes.
Trustee Lee. Trustee Heinz. Trustee Youngerman.
Yay.
Trustee Marisak.
Yes.
Trustee Bond.
Yes.
Thank you.
Can we have a bathroom break?
I'd say we do the bathroom break.
We're getting older.